How's it going? In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make your thumbnails pop, look good, and give you just some basic clarity on what you should be putting in your thumbnails. If you're curious about who I am, I'm the lead thumbnail designer for Cross, and I've worked with other creators such as Fallout, Jigsaw Clyde, Plunder, and many more. We're going to be using 4 elements in today's thumbnail. We're going to have the subject, that one's going to take the longest, and then we're going to have the perk, the icon, and the text. If you're curious about how any of these are done, there will be timestamps in the description along with any keybinds if you're curious. Maybe if you just want to make your subject look good or make your icons look good, it's all up to you. There's timestamps in the description. But yeah, let's get into it. As you can see right here, I have this little, mini guardian right here. I just have him holding a blue weapon. I give him a bigger head, yada yada. So we're gonna start off with the perks. I've already imported them in. So we got let me put the background on first. We have, this gun has under pressure, and then we're gonna have the gun icon over here because there's some empty space, and below here there's some empty space. So what we're gonna do first is we're gonna style these, and then later we're gonna put some text up here. We're probably just gonna make something bluff like best blue AR or auto or something like that. So what we're gonna do is first we're gonna be getting into the perks, or this perk right here. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna go to the right over here, this little toolbar. We're gonna right click, make sure we have the ellipse tool, left click, and then make a little rectangle. We're just gonna do like 350. And also this icon is upscaled. I'll be leaving the upscaler that I use, or a good one, down in the description. It's called Waifu 2X. It should be in the description if you want to look at it. It's pretty simple to use. So yeah, we're gonna get this right. So we're gonna go enlarge it a bit more. The perk, enlarge a bit more as well. Looks pretty good. And then we're gonna color the perk. We're just gonna make it blue like it is regular in Destiny. So we're gonna right click here, go into blending options, and then we're gonna go to gradient overlay, and then we're gonna hit this one instead of linear. Let me drag it over here. Actually, let me make it more visible. Instead of linear, it's gonna be radial, and then we're just gonna make sure that it's on the right side. So we're just gonna make it like blue, baby blue. So we're gonna click on the color, go into the colors, and then we're gonna do a little baby blue right here. Click OK, and then go to the other side, make it a little darker like this. And then you want to make sure the lighter color is in the middle right here. Make sure the lighter color is in the middle, because if you reverse it, it's gonna look different like that. So just make sure it's in the middle, and then you can play with the scale however you want it, but I think it's pretty good. And then we're gonna put a stroke on it. We're gonna do it on the inside, set it to like 5 or 6, and then we're gonna give it a little drop shadow. Distance like 10, size like 10, and then add a little inner glow if we want. Make sure it's like blue. Make sure it's a little blue. And then we're gonna add the linear dodge. If we add normal, let's go back to linear dodge. I'm gonna make it a little bit lighter, a little bit more baby bluish. Increase the opacity, and then increase the size a bit. Do like 35. Actually, we're just gonna keep a little faint. If you want to go up like this, that's totally up to you. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the perk over here under pressure, right click on that, blending options, and give it a little drop shadow so it pops a bit more. Put size, boom, that's pretty good. I'm actually gonna play with the gradient a bit more. Can make this blue a little bit darker. Play the scale a bit, and then yeah, looks pretty decent. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit shift, and then click the ellipse below, or not the ellipse, the little circle below. Ctrl T, and then we're just gonna move it, upscale it a bit, scale it up, tilt it a bit, like this. It's pretty good. And then we're gonna do this perk over here. Not the perk, I meant the weapon icon. The gun I'm using in this is Lionheart, so we're gonna be using. And then what we're gonna do is we're basically gonna do the exact same thing, except we're just gonna use some different blending options. So I'm gonna go back into blending options, drag it a bit over here, should zoom out a bit. Right click, go to blending options, and then I'm gonna give it a little stroke on the inside, give it a little drop shadow as well, and then put the size a bit up so it's more faint. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to inner glow, make sure it's like blue, put the opacity all the way up, and then put the size up a bit, make it blend in a bit. This, and we're gonna give it a color overlay, make sure the blend mode is set to overlay, and then we're just gonna set it to like probably around 10. And then actually I'm gonna go back into the icon. I'm just gonna play with the glow a bit. I'm gonna make it more, dark bluish. a little outer glow as well. Screw it. Opacity, put that up a bit. Size. That's looking pretty good. And then we're gonna give it some little, sauce. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to the edit here at top left, edit, transform, distort, and then we're gonna point it towards the character for whichever way looks the best. We're gonna drag it behind him a bit. I mean, yeah, it looks pretty good. And then actually upscale this guardian, or scale it up a bit. Scale him up a bit, rotate him a bit. Boom, that looks pretty good. I think that's looking pretty good so far. You can do this with the icon if you want, but it's up to you. Shift click him, rotate him a bit. Yeah, it's totally up for you. What I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna group all of these icons now. So I'm just gonna hit the top one just under pressure and then go to the gun icon, hit shift. And then this little group icon down here, this folder icon, you're just gonna click on that and boom, you have a group. And you can name it to, you can double click on it, left click on it, and you just name it to icons. And then boom, you just see all your icons now. So we're gonna hide the icons and now we're gonna play with the background. So I just got a background here on the map Citadel, got it from in-game. You can't just use like a sky, you can go to like some website like Unsplash and just search in sky and then you could put one in the background if you want. But I just like using Destiny maps as it gives thumbnail more of a Destiny feel. People are more kind of familiar with sometimes the maps. So I don't like how the rock is here on the left side. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to transform and then we're just gonna flip it horizontally. Scale it up a bit, and then we're gonna rotate it one of the either sides. I think I'm gonna rotate to the right or the left. See which one just fits better. I'm gonna rotate it to the right. Make sure this floor is up here. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna be playing with the color correction of the background. I'm gonna have these greens taken out and then probably keep the blue or just change it to some different color. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to our background over here, make sure it's a smart object because if you put the filter on, you're not gonna be able to go back into it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press Shift Ctrl A, and that's gonna bring up the camera raw filter. And then we're gonna go to color mixer, and then we're just gonna play with these values on the right over here. So I'm gonna take the greens out, more seems like yellows-ish. Oranges, I'm gonna desaturate those a bit. I don't really like this blue. So I'm gonna go to the hue over here, and then I'm gonna switch it to more of like a cyan. I think that looks a bit better. Switch to more like a cyan, and then we can just play with some other color values here. Play with these oranges a bit more. I'm just gonna take these pretty much all the way down. The reds, I'll keep those a bit. Now we can play with the blues, purples. See, it affects the background over here. We're not really going to be seeing it, and plus we're going to be blurring the background anyway. So it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to take them down anyway. And luminance, this is just like the brightness of each color, basically. And then just mess with all these other colors, basically. I'm not really going to mess with any of it. Yeah, I'm not. You can just leave it alone if you want, but I didn't really mess with any of it. And then we're just going to hit OK. Now we can have this cyanish background here, which I kind of like because, I mean, the video is going to be about a blue weapon. So yeah, we're just gonna mess with that here, mess with the background a bit more. I think this will be good. Okay, and then we're just gonna add a little bit more effects to it. So I'm gonna go to this little icon down here, this like sphere that's split in two. I'm gonna left click on that and then go to color vibrance, and then I'm gonna give it more like a cyan tone, more of that bit of purple back, kind of like the green a bit more. Give it some blue. Yeah, I kind of like the green a bit more. I'm gonna keep that a bit. Then yeah, I'm gonna keep it the way it is, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a new layer. Actually, we're gonna go back there and we're gonna go to solid color. We're gonna get a color that's similar to the background here. So I'm gonna go to this little color, or I'm gonna left click on the color fill, and then I'm just gonna select a color that I think it's similar to. I think the one I had was pretty good or pretty close, but just select a pretty good color. I'm gonna hide this guardian, and then make sure your mask. So when you put the color fill up, it's going to be like this. If you just want to change it, you can take the opacity all the way down and select your color. Just press Ctrl I, which will invert the mask for you, make it black. And then you can go to your brush over here. And then I'm going to set my flow to like 12. Make sure it's on white so you can paint back in. So I'm just going to paint around these. Make sure your hardness is at 0. Make sure you have a soft brush on. So I'm just going to paint around these a bit. I'm going to turn it actually down a bit. Then just paint around these. We're going to give these like a little glow. Little background to glow right here. Then if you want to go back and do something, it's Ctrl Z, and then if you want to zoom in, it's Alt and scroll wheel. If you're just kind of new to this, I'll leave all those keybinds down below if you're curious. So give it this little glow over here as well. Sides. I think it's looking pretty good. And then I'm switch linear dodge add. I don't really like that. I kind of just like how it is normal. And then what we're going to do is we're going to right click, go to blending options, and then we're going to make sure we're in this menu right here. And we're going to go down to this right slider right here. We're just going to press Alt on one of them and then drag right. And then it's going to kind of blend it in with the subjects a bit that's in the background. I'm not going to do too much, just a little bit, probably like 10. And then we're just going to OK. But I think our background, you know, it's looking pretty good. It's not bad. Just all blue. It's pretty good. We could probably, once we get done, we could probably just fill in these shadows a bit, but it is what it is. It's pretty good so far. And then what we're going to do, next thing we're going to do is we're going to blur the background. We're going to be using lens blur on this. We're going to have to make sure the layer is rasterized, but if you don't want to use lens blur, we can just go to filter and then you can select one of these blurs. You can either use Gaussian, or if you want, you can go to blur gallery and use field blur. That's also a good one. You can just pick each point where you want to put the blur. I'd probably just use Gaussian if you don't want to rasterize it, or if you're on a time crunch. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit Shift, hit this top one up here, and then we're just going to hit Alt and drag up so it duplicates it, and then we're going to right click and then merge layers. And then what that does is it just takes all of these and puts them onto one. What we're going to do is we're just going to hide all these real quick. Let's actually put them in a group real quick. Go to this black and white filter, blur, and then we got lens blur right here. Before, if you have it a smart object, you're not going to get lens blur. So I'm going to hit lens blur, and then we're going to go over here to the radius. I'm just going to put like 12 and I'm going to put the shape as square. This is going to be 100. This, you can change this to like 100. I don't know, I don't really know what this affects that much, but I'll just keep it at like 100 or whatever the default is. Make sure your distortion is Gaussian, and then yeah, you're pretty much good. And then I'm hit OK. And then, yeah, that's what we're pretty much going to do for a blur. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to close this group. And now we're going to be going on to the fun part, the lighting, making the subject, you know, pop a bit more, look cool. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our mini guardian up here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the top left here, go to adjustments, shadows and highlights, and then just play with the shadows. You don't really need to play with the highlights. I'm just going to put the shadows up by like 5%, not that much. We're going to put shadows on the character. So we're going to go to this little thing down here. And then we're going to put an exposure layer on it, and then make sure you put a clipping mask on it. You can just Alt left click and it'll have this little down arrow on it. If not, you can just right click and then go to create clipping mask. And then we're going to turn the exposure down to like 4, probably like 4. And then we're going to invert the mask. And then I'm going to get my brush, and then I'm going to put the flow to 5. What we're basically going to do is we're just going to make all these dark areas, how do I say, more dark, and you'll see what I mean. It just makes them a bit more pop more. You could also do it a curves layer if you want instead of an exposure, but I like exposure a bit more. So make sure it's inverted, make sure your brush is white, and then we're just going to brush over the parts that have shadows in them. So like below the fingers, when the gun is, actually up it a bit. But if you don't like using exposure, the other option you can use is curves. Let's go down here, curves, and then you can take this down like this, and then invert the mask and make sure it's clipped to the subject. You can just paint over it again, basically. It's all up to you. I like using exposure. You can use curves if you want, but it's really all personal preference. Sometimes I see myself going back to curves, but I just like using exposure. Yep, we're just gonna paint all over these black spots. Make sure your brush is between like 5% or 10% flow. I'm just gonna have a time lapse of me just going through all these shadows, and then when I'm done, I'll show you the next step. Okay, we're now done with the shadows. I also forgot to mention before I start putting them on, make sure just be mindful of where you're putting where your lighting is going to be. This one, it kind of doesn't really matter. It's just a thumbnail, but like you don't want to put like your shadows in just a random place like this. Just put them in the places that there's kind of already shadows, or like there's already like, I don't know, something connecting to something. So like a good example is like fingers, or like, you know, this little bond right here. Pretty good example. Or just like where there's little places in between like this, just to keep in mind, or like in between this, like the elbow or the arm and the torso. Just like get like a little dirty and gritty in these little, you know, places that connect to each other. Gives it, you know, more depth. It pops a bit more. It makes it kind of look a bit more realistic. Just keep in mind where your lighting source is. And the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do highlights. We're gonna go over here to the right, and then we're gonna do color fill, and then we're gonna use the same color we were using for, you know, the glows on the background, and then we're gonna clip this to subject. You can make this any color you want, but just make sure it's kind of similar to your background so it blends in a bit more and it makes more sense. So yeah, we're gonna invert that. And then what we're gonna do is, actually we're gonna go back, put it on linear dodge add, just make sure it looks good. We're gonna okay, and then we're just gonna invert the mask. And then I use a pen on this, but it's okay if you use a regular mouse. I have a pen pad for this, or drawing tablet. I'll just set your flow to like 5 or 8, and then kind of just like go over stuff, or I'd set it to 15. Probably set it to 15. We're just gonna go around the edges like this, and then just make sure they're, you know, bright. Yeah, all we're gonna do is we're gonna go around the edges like this. It's obviously not gonna be as bright as it will be up here. Yeah, we're just gonna go over this. I'm using a mouse right now. We're just gonna go over this. You know, it's kind of long and tedious, but I kind of find it the most fun part, as this is what's gonna make your subject pop for the most part, is where all this lighting is. Yeah, so basically we're just gonna go around this whole like subject on the edges, all of them. This is, you know, transparent. It's cut out already. So we're just gonna go around this, make sure it looks good. Oh yeah, and when you're making highlights too, it's okay to like lower the brush, the opacity of it, and then just brush over it, because, you know, the light's gonna be blending into the subject. You're not gonna just have some random highlight that's just gonna be like bright as hell on the edge, and it's not gonna affect the rest of the subject, unless it's the back rim of a light. Like for example, if it's in a shadowy place like this, we're just gonna draw like a little, nothing too crazy. We're just gonna draw like a little note, like it's a rim light. Like we're just gonna go do a little bright line like this, and then that's all we're gonna do, just on these like little parts that are part of the shadow. So something to keep in mind when doing your thumbnail. But this is really a thumbnail. It's free reign. You know, we don't really have to follow any lighting principles, because we just have to make it pop, make sure it looks good for someone who wants to click on the video. Yeah, you can just like, for most of these, you can just throw design or lighting principles out the window, but I just like to stick it to more, you know, make it look a bit more like realistic, like it's, I wouldn't say like an art piece, make it more pleasant to the eye. That's up to you if you want to do that. So we'll be back when the highlights are done. We're done with the highlights now. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do the, make them a little bit brighter. I'm gonna put another exposure layer, clip it, and then we're gonna hit Alt on our color mask where the highlights are, and then drag that up to the exposure layer, replace mask, yes, and then we're gonna turn it up a bit. So we're gonna turn it up to like 1 or in between that, play with the gamma a bit, and then we're gonna go back to our highlights, right click, go to blending options. As you see, there's all this like haze around the edge of the highlights, like all this haze and stuff. So what we're gonna do is we're kind of gonna get rid of that. We're actually gonna have it blend into the subject. So we're gonna right click, go to blending options, go on this first page, and then we're gonna go to the bottom one here, and then we're gonna select Alt and then drag right. As you see, is it blends in with the subject a bit here. Yep, right click, boom, blends in a bit. I wouldn't do it too much. I would probably stick to like 10 to 20, but if you want to go all the way here, screw it. But I'd keep it into like 10, 20 range. Sometimes it will not look good on a subject, so if you want to keep it without, that is totally fine. I usually tend to keep it between like 10 and 20. That's like the safe area. After this, if you want to go in and paint some areas, like over the highlights, like over here, just kind of where the highlights are, where the bright highlights are, instead of like the shadowy highlights like this, feel free to do so. I mean, yeah, I'm just going to do it very light around the edges here. And after this, we're going to put some blending options on the Guardian. So we're going to right click here, go to blending options, and then we're going to give it a little drop shadow. We're just going to do like a distance of like 2 to 3, size, like probably like 5 to 10, and then just put the opacity down to like 30. It's optional if you want to do this. I do it sometimes, gives it a little bit more depth, and then you can play with the angle if you want. But I'm actually going to keep it off on here on this one. Inner shadow, and then I'm going to set it to color dodge, and then I'm going to set the distance to 1 and the size to 1, and then I'm going to go to bevel. Then actually I'm going to play with the bevel settings, and then I'm going to set that to up, and then I'm going to do 1, 2, and then set the depth to like 100. Nothing too crazy, just a little. Then next is we're going to add the white outlines. As you can see, the thumbnail I'm going to show when it's finished. You can see that we're going to add the little white outlines. Yeah, you're basically just going to create a regular layer, and then you're going to clipping mask it, set the blend mode to overlay, and then get a white brush. And then go to your brush again, and then I would set the flow between like 50 and 100. I'm going to set mine to 75, just in between there. And then we're just going to go around on these light bars right here. Here, I'll show you in a sec. It gives this little white effect around the highlights. And then sometimes when you're going around, sometimes it won't be white. Let me find like a good example. But sometimes it will just like blend in with the color. Just change it back to normal instead of using overlay. I'll just do that. Put back normal instead of using overlay. If it blends in with the color too much, then it's not bringing out this whitish feel on the end. So this would probably be a good example right here. So to overlay, if I set it to just like normal, it kind of brings this whitish thing on the edge. It's up to you if you want to keep it to overlay or normal. I keep it to overlay, but I will create another layer and set it to normal and go over it if I want it to be more white. So you're just going to go over the light parts that you highlighted. You're going to be asking, it's like, all right, why are we doing this if we put that inner shadow on already? This just makes it a bit more white and pops it a bit more. It's totally up to you if you want to do it. I like to do it. I'd recommend doing it. Makes that white glowish pop a bit. It's kind of like a gradient white glowish. And then it's like, hey, maybe if I want the edges to have more glow, I can go in and back to the normal layer and, put some more, highlights on it. So it's all about just mixing and matching what you think will look good. But this is objectively by my standards and what I've made for other people, looks good. So totally up to you. So you're making it for yourself as your design. So go for it. Experiment with things that you want, things that look good, things that look bad. It's all up to you. You just, you're really just plugging in, pushing in pieces. But I'm just giving here a little clarity about, my workflow, what I think would look good. Then as you can see, we're already counting a problem with the blend if. You see this little pixelation over here? Yeah. We're going to negate that a bit after this here in a sec. If you are adding more highlights like I am here, just replace the original exposure layer that you have with the mask that's on the color layer. So just Just do the same thing again. Alt, go above it, boom, replace it, bam. All right, next after this, we're gonna make the Guardian a bit more cartoonish, you know, not make it so, how do I say, rough like this. So we're gonna make it a bit more cartoonish. So now onto the cartoon effect, or, you know, it just makes the Guardian a bit more smooth, so that's why I like to put it on. So first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go over to the mini Guardian over here, or your subject, and I'm gonna put a camera raw filter on it, which is Shift Ctrl A. And then it's gonna bring this menu up, and we're gonna go to detail. And then we're gonna put like the detail to like 50, so it's not over, we don't want it overblown to where it's blowing details out of the water like this. So we're just gonna put it to like a 50, in between 50 to 100, between there. I'm just gonna put it like a 50 or 60 and do that. This is optional. I go to oil paint, where is it? We're gonna go stylize, oil paint, and then, you know, we can just play with these settings, but the ones I use like 2.5, stylization 1.5, cleanness 2.5, and then scale 1, and brush detail. I don't know, I just kind of mess around with it. But feel free to mess around with these settings, get something you like. And then lighting angle, I usually put it to like 45. If you don't like the oil paint look, I mean, you still want to apply this filter even if you do have the oil paint on. You go back to filter, you go to sharpen, and you go to smart sharpen. And then just make sure all these values kind of correlate with each other. So if I want to, you know, put it up to 20, I'm going to do 20% and 2.0. So just make sure these kind of like line up simultaneously, but I'm just going to do 10% and 1.0. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to filter, other high pass. This just sharpens it a bit. Hit OK. Go to the little icon over here, this little slider icon, double click on it, and then go up to the mode. So hit normal, and then just go down to overlay. Boom. And then if you want to add a little bit, you know, one more touch, you go up here to filter, and then you go to filter gallery. I add this sometimes. It depends how I kind of want it to look. But I'll go to paint daubs, put the brush size to 1, and then I'll put the sharpness between 1 or 2. I usually keep it in between there, but we're gonna go 2 on this one. Just gives it a bit more sharper look like this. So probably not the best example on this character, but I mean, it's not bad. And this is what I usually do. I'll be honest, it actually kind of looks better. Put the filters off. I might just take the noise reduction down a bit. So yeah, basically I have all the filters on right now. I just put the noise reduction down a bit. So this is how we get this smooth little cartoonish effect. And then we're just going to brighten the subject a bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this another exposure layer. Boom. Just clip it to the whole subject. And then just put the exposure up a bit. We still have this little roughness over here, but, you know, people are not really going to notice it because, you know, they're going to be viewing it from all the way out here. But, you know, it doesn't look as bad as, you know, it used to. But we're going to be going on to the text now. All right, before we get into the text, I forgot to add some glow behind the subject. So you have these outlines, and let's put some glow behind the subject just to make it look good. So what we're going to do is we're going to go below subject, add new layer. Actually, no, we're going to drag our color fill down here using Alt, and then just drag down below the layer, and then we're going to go to the mask, right click on it, delete it, make a new mask, Ctrl I to invert it, and then we're going to go back to our brush over here, and we're going to put the flow up to 100, and then we're just going to do one dab. You can play with other blend modes, just see which one looks the best, like overlay if you want, linear dodge add, screen, color dodge if you even want to, but I'm just gonna stick with linear dodge add. We're just gonna go over it, and I'm gonna turn the opacity down a bit, around 40, and then create a new layer above it. Make sure this is all whites. Put your blend mode to overlay, put it at 100, and then just do one dab, and then you can put some around, just whichever looks good, but I put like one dab and then maybe some around the corners like this. Boom, we got this glow around the subject like this. And then if you want, you can go and adjust the highlights more, like maybe you want to have it, how do I say, bleed in a bit more. All right, so now we're gonna move on to text. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over here to the right side, and we're gonna type in, I'm just gonna use the gun name here. You wanna use this to whatever is corresponding to your title. So I don't know, maybe you're doing a series on the best blue ARs, and you're like, oh my gosh, this blue AR is crazy. I just want to blow it out of proportion, gotta be more authentic. Yeah, I'm just gonna type the weapon name because I'm not really going off title here. I'm just gonna use a bold serif font. I'm gonna use the TikTok font. It's called Montserrat. I'm gonna see how these letters look spread out, and I'm gonna go push it into -10. Scale this up and do this. I don't know. I don't really like this blinks. I know this is gonna somehow clip over here, and I don't want that. So what I'm gonna actually do is I'm gonna turn the font, or the word, and I'm gonna turn the word. words are hard. I'm gonna turn the word Lionheart into 2 words instead of just 1. There we go. So type lion and then just move tool, and then type in hearts. Pair these together like this. And then I'm gonna shift select both of them, scale it up, and then I'm gonna bring it over here. I kind of want it leaning with the gun like this because yeah, it just look good, kind of fit this space over here. Because if we kind of just do it like this, I don't think it's gonna look good. So I'm just gonna have it move like the way of the gun. Scale up line a bit, and then after this, we're just gonna distort it a bit. Make sure that for this, I'm gonna have both the layers under the subject instead of above. See, it's kind of clipping in the subject, which it's fine. You don't want to have like the word like totally like something like this because you're not gonna see the end. But so we're just gonna scale it up to a point where it looks good. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna convert both of these to smart objects, because if you go to here, the only thing you can do with it is skew it like this. The only thing you can do. If you want to do that, that's fine, but we're actually gonna distort it a bit, make it have a bit more perspective. So I'm gonna right click on here, convert to smart object, and then right click on the other one to convert to smart object. And I'm gonna shift select both of them, press go over to edit, transform, and then put on perspective. And then I'm gonna have it lean. Let's have it lean up like this and into the subject like that. Yep. Actually, it looks kind of more of like a design poster. The way the text is structured. I don't really like that, so I'm gonna start playing around with it more. I'll be back on something that I've settled on. Okay, I've come back and I've kind of decided on this is where font is gonna lie. So first thing we're gonna do is gonna work with some blending options here. So I'm gonna right click on this, go to blending options, go to drop shadow, put it to black, put the distance down. Yeah, I'm gonna put the distance to like a 12, and then I'm gonna do the same thing on the heart. And then we're gonna make this text red. We go to gradient, and then because it's lean, we're gonna have to change the angle, whatever it is, the angle of the gradient, because default is gonna be 90, and if we scale it all the way down, it's gonna see how it's on an angle like that. If you want it, it's up to you, but I don't think that looks good. Let's try 69. Oh my god, that's ironically the sweet spot for maybe not. A little bit past. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna scale it up a bit, and then we're gonna go to the gradients. And then we're gonna use a gradient kind of like how we're the one using right now. We're gonna do like a light red, and then we're gonna do a dark red. The reason why we are using red here is because subject's blue, background's blue, the color that contrasts the blue is red, so this red text is gonna stand out. Yeah, that's why we're using it. If it's more of a darkish blue, we'd be using something like yellow or orange. So, but we're just gonna use this. Yeah, we're gonna set on this little gradient, press OK, scale it up a bit, even it out, something like that's good. So yeah. So what we're gonna do here is we're actually gonna change, we're gonna put a white stroke around it. We go back to our blending options, go to stroke, and I'm gonna put it to, let's put it to 5. Keep the drop shadow as 12 and 5. Pops out a bit more than just, you know, just a black drop shadow. Now we're on to the overlay in the background. We're just gonna add some particles. So I have a pack if you wanna go get it. I'm gonna open it up real quick. We're just gonna put some particles over the subject. So from a pack, I'm just gonna go to particles, over here, select this one, duplicate it, bring it over to this one, our regular PSD. And I'm gonna drag this one all the way top. Drag it all the way top, and I'm gonna change the blend mode to screen. And then I'm going to scale it up to where it fits the whole screen basically. I'm going to put a mask on it, select a brush, and then cut out some of these particles a bit like this. And I'm gonna give it a little blur. So I'm gonna go to filter, lens blur, make sure your layers are rasterized, and I'll just put like the radius. Put like the radius to like a 4. Lower the opacity a bit. No, it's not some crazy, but just makes it look overall a little bit better. Now we're on to the final step, and we're gonna add the camera raw filter on it. We're gonna make a new layer, and then we're gonna press Ctrl, Shift, Alt, and E, all 4 of those, and then all that does is it combines all the layers from below into one, like this. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna right click, convert to smart object, and then we're gonna put a camera raw filter on it. So Shift Control A. And then we're gonna put the exposure up. We're just gonna mess with these filters over here. So I'm gonna put the exposure up, put the contrast up, highlights, so those look, don't really wanna mess with them. Shadows, turn those up a bit. Whites, not really a crazy difference. Blacks, turn those up a tad. I'm gonna go to color blue here. Temperature, I'm gonna add a little yellow to it. Tint, we're gonna go for some purple. Then vibrance, yeah, we're just gonna mess around with these settings a bit. The vibrance and saturation up just a tad. Go to effects, and this is where the real magic happens. You know, you get this cool like texture over this. I don't like using texture unless it's something in before I put this on. So if I put texture up, you're gonna see this. I don't know. There's usually banding a lot. Like see how there's this green glow around the icon. I don't want that, so I'm not gonna put texture up as it kind of disperses the colors a bit. So I'm gonna actually turn it down a bit to like 20%, and then put the clarity up. Clarity is just basically like, it's like a texture contrast in a sense. How do I say? Put that up to like a 30. Dehaze, turn that up a bit. Vignette. I like to keep vignette between. You don't want to go too intense, as you can see, like this. But I like to do a little tad on this, like 0 to 5 or 0 to 10, or just put some 5. Put like 5 on it, -5 on it. Grain. I put this up to like 5 or 10 because you're not gonna be really seeing it that much, but it's a nice little touch. Curve. I don't really mess with that. Color mixer. This is for changing colors, like we did with the background and stuff. Hue. Sometimes I'll mess with this. Sometimes, like maybe if I wanted it more cyan, which actually kind of looks pretty decent. Yeah, let's mess with that a bit. And then if you want to change the saturations of like the red, like on the text maybe, or the blues, it's up to you. We're just gonna mess with some of these sliders, just the blues. And then we're gonna go to color grading. Just be very faint on these. Don't be too crazy like this. I'm just gonna put the midpoint like a green. Shadows. This one will probably have the most impact on your canvas. So we are just gonna make it like in between blue and purple right there. Highlights, just put those to cyan. And then optics, be careful when you mess with these, because if you do plus, you're gonna have to scale it up once you get out, because you can see these little bandings on the bottom. But I don't usually mess with this. If I do mess with it, it's either a -1 or a +1. In this case, I'm just gonna do a little -1. Vignette, I don't mess with this in here because we already messed with it up here. And effects, lens blur, just skip over that. That's some Photoshop beta testing stuff. Geometry, I don't mess with this either. And then final one is calibration. I mess with this a lot. Gives you a better color grading. So red here, just mess with these sliders. As you can see, if I go right, it's gonna be more orange. If I go left, it's gonna be more rose. So I'm gonna put it more to the left a bit. And then green, mess with this a bit. As you can see, it will affect every color in your canvas. Feeling more on the left side here, move it a bit left. And blue, this is either gonna make it blue or purplish, like this or that. We're just gonna mess with this just a tad. We're gonna move it to the right just a tad. Saturation, we're gonna move with this as well, and just bring it up a little bit. And then we're gonna go over here to the right side, and then I like to put lift shadows or strong S curves. See how lift shadows look? Strong S curves. I'm liking the lift shadows a bit more. We're gonna go with this. Put it up to like 15 up here, and then we're gonna hit OK. And then yeah, we're pretty much done. That's our thumbnail. If you want to hide it like this, boom, you can already see the differences. It makes a huge difference. Let's say it's like, oh, you're messing up with something here, and it's like, oh, maybe I forgot to put something in the background, or you want to make a little change. So what you can do is you can just hide this. Let's say if I want to, I don't know, put a glow on this perk over here. So what I can do, just make a new layer, whatever, do whatever change you're gonna make. To reapply that camera filter, you just do the same thing we did before. So just Ctrl-Shift-Alt-E, convert to smart object, and then Ctrl-Shift-A to bring up the camera filter again. Hit OK, and then just drag your camera filter down on this. And boom, like that. Boom, we're done. Just drags it over, and see, we have that glow over there. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna export it. So we're gonna go to File, Export. Make sure your format is a JPEG, because thumbnails are under 2 megabytes. So make sure it's not a PNG, make sure it's a JPEG. It's just the same quality, but the image size is smaller. So we're gonna bump it up to 7 if it's above like 2 megabytes. You can just take it down 1 to 6. It's a thumbnail. The quality's not really gonna change that much, and it's just a small screen people are seeing. Quality won't be affected that much, but I'm gonna put mine up to 7, 1.7. And then yeah, we are basically done with this thumbnail. I'm gonna export it real quick, and boom, there's our thumbnail. Right there, all done, ready for you. And then just make sure you save and name the file. So yeah, that's gonna be wrapping up for the thumbnail. If you enjoyed, I have another tutorial. It's on my channel. I'm just gonna leave it in the description. If you want to know how to make 3D subjects or 3D models or just pose them, they're gonna be in that tutorial. I have like a whole 20-minute section, and then I dive into another thumbnail if you want to go into that. yeah, if you want to, follow me on Twitter, it's at SoulClips in the description if you want to get in a call and we can go over some branding for your thumbnails. Or if you just want to commission me, you can just hit me up on Twitter and then we can work some stuff out there. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Hope this helped you give some pointers out if you're new to D2, if you're new in the content creation space, or if you're just curious how you want to make a thumbnail. But yeah, this has been Joey, and out of here.